Hello and welcome to the MHR podcast. I'm Alice and normally we have Andy, but today I've invited Kate along.
Hi, thanks for having me.
That's all right. Thanks ever so much for coming. So, Kate, for anyone that might not have seen or heard from you before, do you mind just giving a little bit of an introduction?
Of course. So I'm Kate. I am a senior product manager here at MHR and I work within the People First product design team and I've been here for just over 4 years now.
Yep. And the reason you're here is the reason I brought you on, because we were both part of the MHR graduate scheme. And the topic of conversation that I thought would be good to chat about is actually the ways of that people get into the workplace. Because I feel like there's definitely many avenues now, isn't there, getting into the world of work. And obviously we just mentioned there the graduate scheme, which probably for younger people, that's what they hear most about is that, you know, after university, after you've got your qualifications, you go and look for a graduate scheme. But we also know that now being part of a workplace, that there are many other ways that people can enter. So for the MHR graduate scheme, I don't know, maybe you can give a bit of an insight what it is.
Yeah, I can give a bit of an overview of what we went through. So yeah, the MHR graduate scheme is a rotational graduate scheme. So that's one of the many different types of graduate schemes out there. But what the benefits are of a rotational graduate scheme is you get to go around all different aspects of a business before you end up going into a permanent role. And the benefit of that is you get to have a little taster for all the different roles that you potentially could go into, but also understanding roles that you might know that you don't want to go into, but being able to understand how they operate, appreciate how they operate, which then really sets you up for once you get into your permanent role after the scheme, which I still find now really beneficial to understand how the whole business operates.
Oh, 100%. No, I definitely had that kind of same experience of my journey. I think studying at university, so I studied business management, you know that we both actually went to the same university.
No coincidence.
No. But I studied business management and I wanted to keep my options open. Yep. And then, like you say, that rotational graduate scheme offered kind of an introduction to different job types or, like say, kind of different dynamics of teams.
Yeah.
But a massive value that I find to my role as customer success manager is that I've built that network. So I think kind of going through that scheme at MHR has definitely kind of built us as kind of more well-rounded and kind of benefited us in our jobs, hasn't it? I think
Certainly.
You'd agree with that.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And just touching on the point again of not knowing what you want to go into. So my degree was actually in geography and now I'm in product design. So it is definitely a bit of a transition there. But it's really important, and I think there's a lot of stigma around like young people thinking that they need to know exactly what qualifications they need to go into certain roles. And obviously there are jobs out there that do require that, you know, if you're going to be a doctor or something like that. But there are many opportunities for people to transition into a completely different field and something that they might not even know exists. Like when I joined the graduate scheme, I didn't even know about product management or that would be an opportunity for me to go into tech in that way. And sometimes you don't know until you're deep into it or you've had conversations with people and you start networking to kind of understand what opportunities there are for you, and then you just give it a go.
Find your way, definitely. I think it's quite funny when you speak to people about how they ended up in their job. They can be the most randomest conversation they've had, or like say it's kind of sometimes it's who you know, isn't it, rather than what you know.
Exactly.
But I think that comes back to your point that for any young person, or I guess for anyone that might be looking for a career change, is not to get too hung up on what they might be qualified for or what skills they might be limited on, but actually to go and give it a go and explore, because it might be that if they can have a certain conversation with that person, that's the way into the industry.
Yeah, and the schemes are really, so graduate schemes, apprenticeships, internships, they're curated and set up to be supportive of people coming into a new environment. And I'm sure many people that have been through a similar experience, when you join, you're amongst a group of people who have done different degrees, who have different backgrounds and different experiences. But then you all go through that same process. You've got the support from mentorship, training, and the support of the colleagues around you that really help you to fit in and feel comfortable.
Yeah,
within
absolutely,
that different role.
Definitely. And I think we've seen as well a couple of businesses now. I think maybe it's a competitive edge that they have, but they're building academies. I think because they're seeing the value of having the graduates enter the workplace, and you mentioned their internships and also apprenticeships are offered. So I feel like it's probably something that might become more prevalent in businesses, is to have these academies, and like you say, the academies, they have specific training programs, they have mentorships, so it kind of builds this whole I don't know how what
community
to call it. That's
well,
what I was thinking. Yeah.
And a setup ready for to keep growing talent organically within your organisation. I think that's something that we're definitely seeing more of.
100%. So we mentioned there as well apprenticeships, and sometimes we find that if a graduate scheme doesn't quite fit, that an apprenticeship is a good fit. So like say when someone's got a specific skill, but another way into the workplace is actually going straight into the job, isn't it? And
exactly.
I think that probably stems from people knowing what they want to do, or maybe they have, like say, they have a parent or a friend or a neighbour that's already in the industry, and that's a way in. They can go straight into the job.
Well, sometimes just taking a leap as well into thinking, this is something I want to give a go. And I think jobs are becoming more structured as well, in the sense of like having clear boundaries of like, this is an entry level role, this is a mid and senior, and there's clear paths that people can see that they can go down. But something we've been looking at as well is how you can change route once you're already in an organisation, and not always going down that linear route of thinking, I need to take a step up and another step up, but take a horizontal step into another part of the organisation. And I think it's quite a nerve-wracking thing to do, but if you talk to people that are in a job that you maybe have an inkling that you want to explore, you might find that you actually have a lot of the traits and the passion for that to just go for it.
Yeah, definitely. And I think just before we were starting this podcast, we had a bit of chat about that a lot of people, where they start in their 20s, is definitely not in the job they end up in later in life. And so I'm just going to throw the question out there, but we work in software, so I wondered, in terms of kind of the HR software, is there ways that a manager or the HR team are able to look at the organic workforce that they have and kind of be able to spot opportunity where people might be looking at new career paths or wanting to kind of elevate their training?
Yeah, so I think what it all comes down to is skills, and it's really important that organisations recognise that the skills that they have within the people in their organisation, rather than seeing them as the roles that they are in, but the skills that they have, because they might have a skill that would be amazing for them to jump across for another project, or jump across to another role for a temporary amount of time, but even for that individual, that they might not realise that they have the skills to jump across into another job. So I think the main thing for organisations to think about is seeing the people as the skills that they have, and how they can record that in some way, so that we're going off on a bit of a tangent there.
But not at all, because I feel like what you're kind of leaning more towards is that people are a real asset to the organisation. So it's not just kind of the revenue that a business generates, but actually it's the people and what skills they have, the dedication they have to, for us it's the dedication to the development of our products, it's to our customer base. But again, I feel like it kind of comes back to that point about how do you nurture people into the workplace, and then how do you nurture them into the next level of their role. And like you say, it kind of comes back to that point of, well, if you have that software where you can kind of monitor the progression of your employees, so check-ins, you've got ways of building communities, so if they've got a certain passion to build a certain skill, they can share that with others, and then really importantly is for managers and HR is that they can see the progression of the employees in the team and across the business, and that people are celebrated, we can recognise it as well. So definitely. For us, coming off the graduate scheme, we were able to build importantly, I think, like you say, that network. But what that meant is when we've been involved in events, or for us going into our respected areas, that network's really helped to promote kind of the work that we want to achieve on a day-to-day.
Recognition is really important for retention, certainly. And what's also really important is going back to the point around skills, is recognising, so like when the amount of skills that we've learned since we've joined the organisation, but obviously they're not on our CVs or anything like that. So it's how we can, as people develop within their careers within an organisation, how we can keep their skills profile up to date as they're going through their career, as they're progressing, as they're doing different projects, working on different things. They might have done one project that has a very unique skill that might be required by the business again in a year's time. And if you don't track that, then there's no way of knowing potentially, unless you've had conversations with people, but people move on. It's really important to be able to track that so that they can have the best experiences.
Yeah, so in some ways, I guess, kind of as a summary of all the different points we spoke about that, it's different ways that we're getting the younger generation into the workplace. So we spoke about, obviously, for our experience, the graduate scheme, we spoke about there's academies where you've got internships, apprenticeships, or you can have people that come straight from school into the workplace. But the real kind of value it adds to the business is it sounds like if you're developing their skills, if you're monitoring their success and listening to their conversations they're having, you're building quite a sustainable business there. And like you say, the most important thing is you're reinvesting in your people. So offering them training.
Learning opportunities. Continuous learning is something I always preach about as well. You're never too old to continue learning, to take on a new course, to
100%,
take on any opportunity that you want to. And I think it's just being in that mindset to have the confidence to do that.
Definitely. And to keep up with the workplace. That's the main thing I think we're both learning. It's very fast paced.
It is indeed.
Challenge us on a day to day. But no, I think, like I say, our experience has been on a graduate scheme and we've definitely felt the benefit of it. But that's not to say that it's best suited for everyone. We can say that for all the young people out there, for anyone looking for a career change, look at all the different ways you can get into the workplace or the industry you want to get into. Have a chat with someone. That was another point we said, is that, you know, it's not necessarily about your skills, but sometimes it's about who you know. So I think on that point, Kate, thank you ever so much for joining us on the podcast this week.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you ever so much for listening or watching if you've been watching online. And we hope to see you next week for another podcast. See you then.